Hello, this is Animus with the Animus Podcast here with Bonreal, TO of Atonement. Season's coming to an end, and we're going to be talking about how that is going to be and what to really expect out of this season and the next season. So, say
Thumbs
hello.
up.
So what we're going to talk about is the season ending for PR, right? Because that's generally what the season's all about, is whether or not you can make PR.
Correct, it
So,
is.
what is PR? PR is basically, I like to think it is a ranking system of top 10 players that represent the city rather than like the top 10 best players.
Hmm.
And right now, and how that's looking, because I have the ELO up here right now. Bonner and I were talking about that Mutace probably won't really qualify for that because I don't think he has enough tournaments to actually. Yeah, he actually doesn't have any of the tournaments to attend.
Yeah.
And then it really depends if sewer person is also allowed at this because it really depends on if otaku is a requirement to actually represent the city. But sewer person
Indeed.
actually has attended. Let me check what he's attended. I know it's like atonements and LFGs and like regionals. So it's actually not. It's not like he's not coming around in the city. Rally, I don't think she actually has entered that much. Actually, let me see here. Yeah, she's entered like five things. Lol.
I think she's almost at the amount you need to be considered actually, which is kind of funny. I think it's
It's
she's
six.
either exactly she's almost there, yeah.
Yeah, because she would just need to enter otaku, but she also doesn't want to bother being PR either, because she at least wants to come into the scene without people being like, "I beat a PR player." Lol.
That's fair, yeah.
Wynn's actually shut up in rankings, which is pretty cool. I do think that he's still a PR level. I remember, I don't know if it was Renegade or somebody else talking about that Wins won't make PR because he's leaving the city, which is. I understand the logic behind that, but that might be a little silly to.
Yeah, that's actually factually kind of incorrect because like for example, the people who leave San Antonio and go to another region for like school, let's say like Gallon, if they leave towards the middle of a season, they still are in PR contention. In fact, that's happened. Gallon has been PR
Yeah,
while he like moved towards the end of the season to go back to school. So
and like the PRs for the season rather than for like the indefinite time that continues on in San Antonio.
yeah, exactly.
So,
I think that's actually a really good point. A lot of people like actually like literally just do not understand how PR works. Like I hear a
yeah,
bunch of like really random rules that people have in their head or like ideas about like how you get PR and to me it's very interesting. And that's
yeah,
not to say I'm not without fault. I definitely have been confused about a few things, but I think again, and I'll talk about this later. I'll let you go on in a second here, but people tend to kind of, I don't know if romanticize is the word, but they tend to make it like make up these rules that in my opinion kind of attach importance to things that like individual players care about but not necessarily matter in terms of the scene as a whole.
yeah. That's actually a good point, right? Because, we were talking about some people think that like your win rate dictates your PR to some extent,
Hmm.
when that is true in the extent that you can't have like a 40% win rate and be PR, but
Hmm.
if you have like a 70% win rate by trying to game the system, you're not going to get PR. Like if you're going to tourneys where there's no PR attendance and you're just farming locals off people who aren't that high on the elo, you're not really going to get PR off that from just having a high win rate.
Yeah, exactly. um I think people so it's it's kind of complicated, but it makes sense to me why people think the thing they do. I think part of it is that people attach a lot of emotional they have a lot of emotional attachment to top aiding locals. And they don't understand that like top 8 is actually completely arbitrary. That number of people, it does not mean like
Yeah.
being top 8 does not inherently mean you're good or doing well. If anything, and actually Ray's has brought this up, and then honestly, Whiteout brought up a more intense version of it. If you are not top 4ing, you probably suck. And then if you are not at least top 2, then you actually probably just shouldn't even enter locals anymore, which was the more intense version of that. And I mean, I don't necessarily 100% agree with that, but like if you're looking at this as like a serious competitive sport, probably what you should be aiming for is landing in payment, basically, which is either top 4 or top 3, depending on the local. And that's really, you shouldn't basically be tying with people. You should have been able to plow through all of those people and get to a point where you could have reasonably won the local, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring up like people caring about top eighting a lot is that they think, oh, I'm top eighting a lot, so I'm going to be a shoe-in for PR. And there is not necessarily a direct correlation between these things. They're related because if you're top eighting, especially at a big local, that means you're probably winning more than you're losing. But in the grand scheme of PR, once you're in that PR pool of top 20 ELO, it really kind of, the head-to-heads matter a lot. And so you can't really like be beating only other people who normally go, 0-2 to 3-2, and then just be like, I'm automatically going to be PR because I've been top eighting everything. Like, you need to be like beating, the lower portions of PR to get that, or the lower portions of people who are top 10 ELO or were previous PR, basically.
I actually agree completely with that because so like I'm gonna bring up Lorian in this situation here because Lorian does get like above top 8 in Otaku and does get decent placements.
Mm-hmm.
But like relatively speaking, the people he is beating, like I don't think he has a single PR win or a win against somebody that is like high up on the elo. Outside of
Mm-hmm.
maybe I think G Meister and Big Mike or Hayes. But
Mm-hmm.
even then, it's very like that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that he got not to say that doesn't matter, but it's like if you get fifth or you get third at a big local,
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't beat anyone that's relatively good, then that doesn't really matter in the sense of you don't get PR because you're getting top 3 consistently at locals. Like I was just talking about how it doesn't matter if you have a good win rate or it doesn't matter if you're going to these locals and winning. Like if you're not beating anyone that's good,
Yeah, so
you're
you
not
kind
good.
of you kind of have to think of the weight of the player you're beating, right? Basically, what you have to think to yourself is, am I beating people who could reasonably win this local overall? Um, and if you are beating those people, or in the very least, you are placing besides them, that is usually a good sign. Um, and that's kind of like, again, that's something people have a little bit of trouble understanding, and I think some of it is just kind of like human nature. They want to claim, something to, remind themselves they're doing well. But again, it's not necessarily about doing well, it's about doing well in a specific way against specific people. And that's why I bring up PR is like relational, right? Like Animus was mentioning, I'm looking at Lorion's stuff, and it's good he's placing well, but to be competitive for PR, he probably needs to start beating, let's say, well, this he's not going to be here anymore. He would need to be beating like the lower part of PR for previous season. Like he would probably need to have wins on like, let's say, our list wins. I don't remember all who was PR last season. Let me actually pull that up real quick.
Yeah.
There we go. Our list wins. Imlo, Raise and Sewer Person. And at least from what I see here, he doesn't have too many wins on those specific people. And that's not bad. It's good he's placing well, but again, there's a bit of a science to getting PR yourself.
Yeah, actually, I've beaten. Let's see. Giddy, Arliss, Emo Lord, Wins, Rays. I have a positive win rate on all of them except Giddy. I think we're tied.
Hmm.
But like for me now, right, in this situation, for me to get like a higher placing, like I think I already have
Hmm.
a positive win rate over KH, but I would have to like beat Hayes, right? And then
Hmm.
like I'm at this point where I'm gonna need to beat like Sewer Person or Gideon Moore or Patu. And it's gotten closer for me, and that's where I'm pretty much like the way I take that as is that I'm getting closer to that area, and it's fine if I
Hmm.
don't get PR this season either, because like if I get number 10, I'm not gonna really care because it's number 10. Like anybody, really, a lot of people are contending for that spot.
Hmm.
So unless for me personally, unless it's like number 7, I don't really care. Well,
Yeah,
just
you're valid.
because I'm trying to just get good wins instead of just barely making it. That's just me personally, right? I
Hmm.
know a lot more people are very like emotionally attached, like you said, to just a number. Like they want number 10 or they want number 9. They want to be PR, like really, really badly.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's partly because they don't realize it's actually a shackle.
yeah, literally, like it
It
doesn't.
doesn't make people happy, unfortunately.
I think it makes people worse, actually. So like once you get PR and then you start like losing, even remotely, like just like if you get upset, you're gonna be really,
Hmm.
really sad because it's like, well, there goes my PR spot. Blah blah blah. I know some people get really down bad
Have
like that.
have we talked about the PR death spiral?
Like where you get PR and you're like, you don't want to lose the PR spot or you don't want to lose, so you either dodge or you choke.
It's a mixture of things. It's kind of like, okay, you get PR, your smiley face, but because you're PR, now you have at least you're chained to it basically to keep that placement
Yeah,
and not have people, lose their mind. You have to keep winning. And so that means you kind of have to change how you play a little bit, and that's not very fun. You can't really like experiment with mains as much because people you'll like, let's say Toast pulls out his fucking Jigglypuff and someone beats that, they will lose their mind and be popping off and just
yeah,
typing in chat and talking about how they got a PR win. And then obviously that's very, very insanely annoying. That is
yeah.
that will very quickly make you hate both this game and other human beings very, very quickly. It sucks the
That's
joy out of the game.
we've talked about. That's why some like newer people, like some like old heads, don't want to come back into the game because it's like either they go their main and lose, or they try something else because they want to like enjoy a new character and they lose, and people are like,
Hmm.
"Holy shit! I just beat X player that used to be so good." Blah blah blah. But you're completely right. Like if I, who would be a good example here, right? I would just use me, right? If I get like number 10 and someone beats me, it's like, ah, shit, I beat Animus, right? Like that's a
Hmm.
PR win. When to me, like in reality, that doesn't mean very much, right? Like to
Hmm.
me, like if a PR win that's gonna matter is like Giddy, Rally, Renegade, Toast, Patu, like people who are like making payout in like Otaku, and not even
Hmm.
like the $2 you get from fifth place. I'm talking like 40, $50 from Otaku, like getting third, second, or first. I think that's where it actually starts to matter. IMO.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but I do know for a fact for people who are gonna get PR, other people who are like super desperate are gonna start camping the shit out of them. Like
Yeah, that's
they're gonna do.
also different. Like people are just very eager to prove themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
so they will like pray at the altar and ask God to give them the most degenerate strategies physically possible. It's literally like that scene in oh no, this is I'm sad this is like an old movie now, but in Spider-Man 3, when Eddie Brock is praying that Spider-Man dies and goes to hell, or that Peter Parker dies and goes to
Yeah.
hell, like people will be doing that, but with their gameplay, they will just be like, let me find the most maximally annoying way to make you throw. Like, not even make myself win, but to make you throw
So
so that I can snipe this win and then be
uh,
in contention for like HM or something.
I've literally had that happen. Like, three or four times I could definitely like bring out fucking names because I've had that shit happen before where they're like in a winning matchup, but they're
Mm-hmm.
like really dedicated to either timing me out or playing so like lame and degenerate that they end up SDing from how much they're like running away and like trying to camp me out and do degenerate strategies like cheese at ledge. And like it's like it'll be like really hard matchups for Sheik, right? Uh
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll win because they'll fucking SD from literally trying to like camp me out or like, oh, I'm gonna go off stage, press my B buttons or like my big ass fucking fair, and then it's like, oh shit, I didn't grab ledge, and then they'll air dodge and fucking die because they're too busy like panting from trying to win.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Like, and it's like, I think there's a different, I don't know how to explain this. Like, there's like trying hard, and then there is trying hard. Like,
there's like,
there's some people, their way of trying hard is just like, I need to lock on to the one most annoying thing possible and like hope someone cannot deal with it for an entire game so that I can win. And there are people who are like, I mean, they're still metagaming, but they're also like learning like multiple aspects of the game all at the same time to
mm-hmm.
try to like close the gap between them and other people, or at least stay dominant over them. So like, I think a good example of like trying hard in, I guess, kind of the bad way is like basically just practicing specifically for like cheese confirms or like
Yeah,
baiting people who like are maybe slow at learning how to deal with certain shit. So like usually like cheesy lead shit, like baiting people into that. Obviously that can be effective, but that falls off the more your opponent, you know, is like more aware and the better they get, right? But
yeah,
some people like, I mean, I've been here enough seasons to see trends, and some people will just literally only fish for that because they're like, well, this one, the very least, like if you fuck up at all, you'll just die, and then
yeah.
that means I'll win. So I'm just hoping for that instead of like learning other aspects of the game.
That's such a big thing too, right? Because this is about like they're doing this to get PR, right? Especially the closer the season ends, the more dominant and relevant these strategies become.
Hmm.
Uh, because again, they're doing everything they can to win. Uh, I think Ray's actually dealt with that the most.
Hmm.
I actually should ask him about that. But he has dealt with it so much that it doesn't really bother him. Like it annoys him. It's like why do people do this? But it's happened to him so much that he just deals with it so easily and then ends up hurting their feelings so bad that they actually start like they get really upset. Right? It's happened to a number of people who are like, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
at ledge and throw my shit, and then if you come near me, I'm gonna throw you off stage and start like down air spiking you or setting up this weird ledge trap that if you don't know, you'll die.
it kind of reminds me of when people try to camp Mute, and then Mute just like rolls up his sleeve and pulls out like a blunt and is like, okay, I'm ready for us to go on
Yeah.
this little camping trip, little bro. Are you
Yeah.
ready? And then Mute will just with a turn up in his hand floating above you, will just have you like crying and shitting and farting because you're so miserable at getting counter camped.
Yeah, it's like
Um, it's actually kind of crazy.
I think that's also really funny too, because like we've talked about this with the sisters, where like when people try to camp us and we camp back, they're like, "Wait, it's not like what do I do?" Because we have better camping tools, we just don't always do it. So when they
Yeah.
deal with it, they're just like, "I can't do it. This is broken."
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting. Actually, listener, if you are listening, if they're playing really campy, just camp them back and see what happens.
Yeah,
there's a there's a
literally.
good there's a good chance that like just get maybe get a little bit of a percent lead if you can, and then just camp them back and
Yeah.
then just see what happens. A lot of times people who play like that do not know how to approach. You have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure you're not shielding so much too much so you don't get like grabbed and then killed off some dumb grab cheese shit. But
Yeah, just move
like
around.
just camp them,
Yeah,
camp them back.
I think that's why Reyes does decently because he knows, or that's what when he does good, he knows how to like he knows his shit when he's actually like giving a fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
When people are camping him, he'll take center stage because they don't know how to camp properly. And
Hmm.
then since they don't know how to approach, they don't have as many options when trying to take back the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but that's a whole like. It's really funny when I think about that. Uh,
But yeah, in any case, the whole reason I brought this up is not to shit on people for being campy.
yeah.
Really, it's more like there is a technical side to getting PR, and then there's a social result of that technical side. People need to beat PR players to become PR. That means there is pressure to play in
Hmm.
ways that will make people lose. Sometimes that involves camping the ever living shit out of them. Other times it involves, like learning specific neutral interactions, learning, specific kill options and routes, a combination of things. It's just that um, in my observation, and this has panned out, it is just easier to learn how to like get specific cheese kills than it is to learn like all of that other shit that goes into beating people. And so it kind of creates like an arms race of being degenerate. You
Yeah.
start you start looking for cheesy shit to start winning, they start doing it back. It makes both parties miserable. That energy spreads throughout the scene because everyone is stressed because they really want to be PR. And that is the PR death spiral. It just no one ends up being happy.
Very,
And
very,
if you
very.
if you take that person's PR spot, now you are in the position where you have to experience it yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of times I don't see too many people being very self-aware about stuff like that, and I think it's just because they're hyper fixating on being PR so much they don't
Yeah.
realize that, like,
It's that attachment they have.
yeah, like sometimes I actually, this is a quick aside, sometimes I wonder why people, if people are like kind of recognizing why Reyes is not placing as well, like that he actually quite literally is not trying anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just think, oh, he's bad now. Like they just automatically are like, oh, he's not winning, so he's just bad. And it's just
That's
like this
that.
happens like every other season where he will
Correct.
stop trying and won't be PR. Someone new or who is not very familiar with him will be like, I'm going to be PR. And then he'll be like, what if I started trying for like a few weeks?
Yeah,
And then
like
he just beats the ever living shit out of.
if you piss off Ryan, like there's Ryan when he's like upset where he's like, this is really dumb to really put all of my time to like instead of spending time with my fucking significant other and like doing things that make me happy and going to this tournament just to prove that I'm fucking better. He that's when he's upset and doesn't want to deal with it, right? But there's other times where he's upset when someone talks shit and they're like, I'm actually fucking better than you. And then Ryan's like, okay, all right, sure, I'm gonna come back and beat your ass like every time. And he's really good when he's really pissed off like that. But you're right, people really don't recognize that
Like
Ryan
there's just,
is good like that.
yeah, and it's and I'm not just saying that to like because I'm a Rays stan or anything. It's like I think sometimes people just like, I think the overall thing I'm trying to say about PR stuff is that people tend to be very focused on themselves and what they want rather than like what is going on in reality, and it makes them very unself-aware. They start thinking that, again, ELO is a hierarchical ranking of people's skill when it is not directly a hierarchical ranking of people's
Yeah,
skill. It is more complicated than that. It's a good shorthand for people's skill, but it is not like a comprehensive, this person is just better than this person is better than this person. On top of that, also, it makes people unaware of like the social element of game playing and being PR. I think one of the biggest things that tends to annoy me is when like a PR person loses to someone non-PR and people just start making like a really fucking big deal about that, being like, "How did he lose?" or blah blah blah. And it's like, well, it's because they're a human being, you baka.
yeah, like literally, people can choose not to care. I think for the most part, most people who are on the top actually care, and unless something like really upsetting happens to them, it's hard for them to come back and like care about it mid tournament. Like I've definitely had like I came from work after like loading up two trucks and then dumping all that in a fucking uh like big waste field of trash. My hands were hurting, and then I lost. I'm like, damn, I don't really feel like playing, and I definitely could have just lost early, and then go home
Hmm.
and complain about it. And I definitely know people are gonna be like, oh my god, like this person beat animus. That's so good. They haven't beaten them before. Uh, but like, there's shit outside in the real world that actively affects people.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why I suggest using like a more holistic view of people's skill rather than like even head-to-heads aren't even like a perfect indicator of people's skill for that kind of reason, where people just have stuff going on in their personal life, or they just decide to do certain things. Like, for instance, Raze has not consistently been going mains. A season and a half ago, he was just bored and decided to start using Kazuya in the middle of a season, and
Yeah,
wasn't doing very well. Um, People switch mains. Like, actually, Wins is a very good example. Wins switched mains like 2 or 3 times this fucking season, um, and then was not placing as well for a brief period and started placing well. And it's like, I don't see people like when they pop off or like make commentary on stuff like that. They don't. I really just don't ever see like self awareness of being like, oh, this person is using a new main, or
yeah,
oh,
literally.
this person is like has not been playing for like 3 weeks and they came back, or etc. etc. Like they just don't. There's not a lot of self awareness, and it makes me a little bit sad because I think that also just makes it very easy to be unhappy because you're not like really thinking about these types of things in a systematic, um, holistic, and
Yeah,
honestly realistic way.
it's also something for like improvement too, because there's two
Hmm.
examples I can think of is where someone who places well or they start doing good,
Hmm.
and it's like either they're playing a character they hate, so it's like, oh, they're just fucking carried because they play this character, uh, or it's like something magical happened. Like I've gotten this a lot with because I'll like watch my vods, and I've seen people like a second word has actually commented on it. It's like, wow, Kellen all of a sudden started like winning. I wonder what happened, right? And it's just like, well, I started practicing and I started like taking care of my hands. But there's definitely other people who get like extremely discredited for like the work they do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Hayes is a good example. Hayes has actually gotten a lot better. Instead of like constantly fishing for the same stuff by like standing still and holding up tilt, he's actually started moving around a lot,
Hmm.
which has triggered a lot of people because it's like, well, I'm still getting brawler cheese, so it's all the same, right?
Hmm.
Uh, who would be a good example? On the other side, there's people who gets worse results recently,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, they're just bad now. Like they're not good. We talked about that with Ryan, but like Emo Lord, as a good example for this one is I beat him recently at One Otaku,
Hmm.
but he actually like game one he was actually having like a good game plan. I think he just
Hmm.
got nervous and fell back to his original like comfort game plan, which is
Yeah,
valid. Like a
yeah.
lot of people do that. Uh, but even though he lost, it's like he's still the fact that he was able to do one game with the consistent game plan that is different shows that he's improved a lot. But a lot
Yeah,
of people
yeah.
are going to discredit it because, well, he isn't placing well, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. People don't have like again like a very holistic understanding of what being good is anyway, outside of just like winning or losing. Like I personally, and you probably can attest to this, I'm actually pretty good at like being able to tell if someone can beat someone or not. And it's because I kind of like look at their habits,
Yeah,
like really aggressively or like how they play. And I'm like, oh, well, this person just kind of loves throwing out burst options, and this person likes holding shield. So I think this person's just going to spend the entire game getting fucking shield grabbed and then fall apart. And then lo and behold, that's exactly what happens. But like other people, like they don't really ever. I don't really see a lot of other people seeing stuff like that. Like they get very flummoxed that certain people lose to certain people, and to me it just makes complete sense when you look at like how they play the game or what
Yeah.
characters they're using.
Uh, and that's the whole thing too. Like, I think for people to also not lose based off of how they play, uh, people just need to get better at different aspects of the game. And like people who like camp from the start just to win and don't know how to approach, but if they learned how to approach, their game plan would be so much better.
Yeah, and again, I want to really emphasize I don't shit on camping because I think camping is inherently bad. It's really that a lot of people camp without a plan and they never learn how to like convert. Like
Yeah,
they're never like they just never learn how to approach at all because they just are either scared or it's hard to learn how to do that. And so really they just kind of like, well, if you don't know how to approach people when they're camping, I win automatically. But if you do, then well, I'm just
yeah.
gonna fucking lose and be sad that my character is designed to have a weakness.
I've tried teaching people on like, not that I'm trying to like be a coach or like give lessons, but it's I'll generally play people friendlies with people. And I was like, okay, if you want to like get better, because I've had people like get upset like mid friendlies and be like, why the fuck am I not winning? Like I won one game, I should be winning all of them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically like, well, here are some things you need to figure out, right? Like you're not approaching, so that's easy for me to hit you. It's easy for anybody else to hit you because you're not moving around. Uh, you're not at ledge, right? Like putting pressure on me. Like I don't care if you're nearby if I know that for a fact you're not gonna push a button that's gonna hit me.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good example. Like people hate going off stage or like ever learning how to ledge guard properly.
Yeah,
And some characters, like you kind of have to go off stage and kill them because they will just like eventually come back if you let them live too long. Like some characters just have like a very wide range where their kill confirms work, and if you're extending the match, they're just gonna eventually hit you with some random safe shit and then kill you off of it.
yeah,
While you're just like struggling to basically like have to land like an unsafe aerial or smash attack to actually finish someone off.
yeah. And most characters can go off stage. Like even like, let me look at this chart here. Like a wolf can go off stage.
Yeah,
Ness can go off
so
stage.
so I got into an argument with Wa about this a while ago when we were playing, like we were grinding for a bit, and he was like, "It's never worth it for a wolf to go off stage because his recovery's bad." And I'm like,
That's
"You
just not true at
ignorant
all.
baka,"
Yeah,
and I just kept ledge slip fucking naring him,
like
and it was so
literally,
funny.
that's such a good option. Like wolf hitting nair or bear at any point is pretty much securing the kill for most characters in the cast. Uh,
Hmm.
because it just knocks you back so far, and it's not that big of a commitment. You
And it
literally,
beats so much shit for no reason.
yeah,
It's
like
so good.
literally, don't fast fall so quickly, and don't waste your jump so quickly, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's honestly, it's a little, if you're just like immediately buffering Nair the second you go off ledge, like it's very hard for people to reversal you because they have to respect the Nair. Like they just have to
Yeah,
get not hit by it.
and they also have to like, if they're trying to trade, they have to tech off stage where they might get hit to the fucking platform, and now they're scared because they don't want to do that, so they'll figure something out instead of actually challenging it.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of stuff that people need to learn. We need to sell lessons, honestly, because people like I know people can do a lot better. Like Imolord is a good example. Like the fact that I know he could switch his game plan and try things that he either isn't confident in doing or like just trying something new mid set and something that he feels is important to win is a lot more than what other people try. You know what I mean? Because other people are like really, really like, I will not deviate from this game plan because that's all I know.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, that's also why I don't like Elo. Like Elo is such a, it gives brain rot to people in such awful ways.
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
but it's also a good example. Like not everyone is also going to meet their goals in this season, right?
Hmm.
Like we only have 10 spots and we have about 20 to 25 people like consistently competing for those spots. Like they all have the same goal of getting PR.
Hmm.
uh Actually not even all of them. Like people who are like top 5, they're probably like, all right, how can I get a good sponsor, or maybe I should go out of city and place well there or whatever, right? They have different goals than like people who are trying to make placements of 5 through 10.
Hmm.
uh, not really sure how to help people with not reaching their goal. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be sad for not getting there, and a lot of people put a lot of time, right? Because
Uh, I think they just kind of have to be sad, honestly. I think that's
yes,
just kind of how
correct.
you
Like
learn that lesson.
that's true, right? Because how do I put
Like,
this?
at least for me, while you're thinking of that, like, I mean, I've been pretty forward with a lot of people. Like, if you come to Atonement and you talk to me in any capacity, you would know how I feel about this. Like, I give very specific things, like, this is a reasonable expectation. This is how,
Yeah,
you can reasonably climb. You need to work on this, this, and this will make you a more holistically good player, and that will, once you reach a critical level of that, make you start beating people naturally because you have just such a wide skill set that is honed that you'll be able to deal with most things once you have matchup knowledge. But I think people just have a very strong emotional attachment to the way they think, and then also
yes,
have trouble with, being flexible. And this is really, um, not even like one or two people. I think this is honestly just like quite literally the majority of people in the scene, regardless of skill level. Even PR players do this, where they just kind of like really refuse to challenge the way they think about competition, and it makes it a lot harder for them to, be happy, unless they are just dominating people automatically. When
yeah,
you're when you like when you get PR and you're not realizing, kind of like, why do I beat the people I beat? To me, that's usually a red flag, that you will eventually start kind of losing because there's not like a lot of self-awareness, in your game plan. It's probably just that the way you play naturally is beating people. You're not having to actually actively figure out how to beat them, if that makes sense.
yes, and I think.
Um,
Sorry to cut you off there.
you're Gucci.
But that's very true, right? Because I think that's what has benefited me the most in improving a lot, like really quickly. Uh, I don't think it's just having medication for my hands, but I also think it's because like the advice you give me, the advice Rally gives me, Ray's, like everybody, the advice everybody gives me, regardless of whether I think it's good or not, I still try to consider it. Uh, and I understand why I don't beat some people, and I understand why I beat other people. And I try to be aware of that because there was like a point where I was like, I don't care about PR. I don't care if I get PR. And I was basically just in denial, right? Because I wasn't trying to get my feelings hurt. And I came to terms with that I was okay, that like I do care about PR. And then I did the forbidden thing of looking at my elo, and I was at like number 25. And then my brain's like, all right, now be sad. Like, you're not going to get PR anymore.
Oh no.
And I was like, ah, oh, fuck. Do I even care trying anymore? And then the next day, I kind of went past my expectations of how I would do in otaku and against people that I've struggled beating.
Hmm.
And then my brain's like, you know what? I'm good enough. Like, I don't care if I don't make PR. I know that I can improve enough to get there, even if I don't make it. And that's kind of what's helped me. But I think I had to one be okay with being sad, right? Because I was actually really, really sad. like, like I'm a little embarrassed of how sad I was because it really didn't matter. But I think that is you're right. When people don't get their goal or don't reach it, they kind of have to be sad to get over it. And I wish I could help people with that, but I think people are so unwilling to change because for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I don't really understand why they're unwilling to change.
I mean, in their defense, it is hard.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people go into competing in games not really wanting or understanding the social aspect of it. Like, actually, let me back up. Okay. Let me pull out my bubble pipe real quick. So a lot of people who come in the scene are nerds.
Hmm.
They're nerds who are often either the best of their little friend group they have in high school or college, or they grind online and they have like a high GSP and maybe compete in online tournaments. They are usually somewhat socially alienated, meaning they don't have a lot of friends, or the only friends they have are other nerds. And so they're kind of like what I call perpetual lurkers, where they basically are always in a position where, because they're not very socially active, they are always aware of other people's thoughts because they're watching what other people are doing, but they do not get feedback on their own thoughts because they do not actively talk about people or talk to people, right? So like a really good example of this is here, imagine you're a new person at a local, you're sitting there not talking to anyone, and then you're just like watching people play, and then in your head your first reflex is just to start kind of criticizing how they play, because in your head it's like, well, I'm not here for the social aspect, I'm here to just be better than people,
Hmm.
so let me just pick this person apart. Basically, and that is just basically how I'm going to handle that situation. And the reason why that's not necessarily useful is because I think the best way to grow is actually not to be like focused on other people, but to like actually focus on expanding the way you personally think. And in that situation, you never open yourself up to be judged by people, and you never open yourself up to get advice or even just experiences with other people. All you do is you sit in your own little bubble and you judge people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
And
actually.
that doesn't that doesn't let you grow emotionally, because it makes you convince the way that you do things and the way you think is the standard, when in reality it's like you're just one of many people who deals with situations in your own way, and that way is like everyone's way of dealing with things, not perfect.
Yeah, that's actually extremely true. I think like I've definitely fallen myself into that, and that's how a lot of people kind of introduce themselves first into the scene. And I've said this before, uh, but you need friends to like get better, because even if you get to that attitude of like, I'm only here to win and only here to compete. I'm not here to make fucking friends. I'm here to only like grind and get better. You're gonna get your feelings hurt when nobody wants to talk to you, and you're like, you yourself are in a place that you need encouragement, or you need someone to like, hey, knock it off. You're being weird. Like you're not as good as you think. It definitely isn't very helpful if you don't have friends to help you out with those things.
Yeah, it's like, again, none of this exists in a vacuum. The only real, like, Smash, for better or worse, and competition is fundamentally a social thing. You can't be PR if there aren't other people there. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, these people aren't just NPCs. They are something that when you play against them, even if you beat them regularly, they are giving you something that will help you when you're competing down the line. I think my little spiel about like why I did not want to ban Steve and why I also personally thought Sewer Person was good for the scene is related to that, where, for better or worse, even if people don't like Steve, you have to play against him at fucking regionals or bigger competitions because they're never gonna fucking comprehensively ban this
yeah,
character. And so consequently, like, Sewer Person is actually perfect for you. You might be annoyed that you're fucking losing to him, but you are getting regular, pretty, for honestly pretty high level Steve experience. Um and you're getting that regular exposure to where it's like, to be honest, with how long he has been playing Steve and available here, um, if you are serious about like learning how to play against Steve, like, he is just the perfect person to encounter. He's accessible. Um, he does Steve stuff that's knowledgeable. He has made adjustments to his gameplay over time, and like, he's not just an obstacle towards you winning. He is basically someone who is basically teaching you a fucking matchup that you need to like actually compete at a high level eventually, if
yeah.
that makes sense.
That's actually that's actually a good example, right? Because I thought about this with like Like I struggle with Hayes' brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about secondaries and all that, but ultimately, I'm gonna have to learn how to deal with that with my character. Because if I have to go out, if I plan to go out of city and take this competitive game more seriously outside of just San Antonio, I'm gonna need to learn matchups. And people like Sewer Person and Patu, even though they play characters that people find not very fun and very anti the video game, uh, they're good resources. Like Patu and Sewer Person go to a lot of events.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sewer Person used to go to a lot more, but I'm assuming that Otaku Ban kind of discouraged him, which is valid. Like that makes sense. Uh, but they would go to like every tournament, and that is good practice, right? Because they're both doing the things that their characters do that you need to learn about.
Yeah. If there ever is a point where those characters, like I said, are like banned, that would be a little bit different, but like they're not going to be.
Yeah, it's
At least,
very
and if they are, it's going to be like right before Smash 6 comes out, honestly.
yeah. Like it's not gonna
So
be like unless the entirety of Texas bans Steve, it's really like you as a competitor going out of city are going to need to learn Steve.
mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that's a good point, and I really hope people will understand that because I know people don't like Steve and they don't like Rob and they don't like Kazuya, which is valid. Like I understand why they don't.
Yeah, I mean they're objectively annoying characters, but it's just kind of like you just have to deal with it if they're
Yeah,
never getting banned. Like
like
these people aren't obstacles towards your glorious future where you become local PR and then are inevitably like I'm not I'm not trying to be bitchy, but it's like there is people go in and out of PR because it's kind of this game is fundamentally unsustainable to be PR in
yeah,
forever. Like we have like a very high rotation of people who have been PR and who have not been PR. I think people really don't appreciate that a lot of the former PR stopped playing either because they became adults or burned out. So it's like to be real, you probably have 2 or 3 seasons in you of being PR max before either, you know, life gets a hold of you, someone who does something that you have struggled or pardon me, that you have trouble dealing with, takes your PR spot, or alternatively, you're just not feeling the game anymore, honestly. Because unless you're like mute and you live off of, you like literally live off of this game, you're not gonna really.
yeah,
Most people, for better or worse, are not gonna really hold on to that spot that long, and so it's like getting upset that you're not immediately getting PR because you see people as obstacles rather than like tools to enhance you as a player. It's just not productive in the long run. And in fact, I think there's a very good reason why a lot of people who are state PR, especially upstate, like upper state PR, they do not even like get local PR in their own region. Like they just kind of stop caring about it as much.
yeah,
Um, like they will maybe enter to make money, and some of them will maybe like pick out random people in their scene to play with to learn matchups, which is maybe morally dubious, maybe not, I don't
yeah.
know.
It
I'm sure people have strong feelings about that, but for better or worse, like they know basically that like this basically is like a little playground for like I guess the big leagues.
yeah, and I think you do make a good point that a lot of people here are like they're real people, and they're not just like an objective for me to get over and it's all done with. Because even if you make PR, right? What do you do after that? That's something I've been thinking about. Of like, even if you make PR, where do you go from there? Do you just stay PR? Do you do you start winning money? Do you start right? And it's all about this goal of what you want to do afterwards. But people like Skinny, Patu, Renegade, like these are people that are going to help you learn stuff when you go out of city, if you ever care to go out of city, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really hard because a lot of people really just want to get PR and call it good and say that they got PR and that's about it. Which is valid. Like I understand why that's a thing, and not everybody is here to try to become the best player they can be, or like have a future in Smash. Not to say that it's like it's possible, because that was recently a little discourse that was going on over living off of Smash, right? I think Smash does provide a good amount for people like Patu and Renegade who are in school, who they get first or second, and that's just like more money for them to have.
Indeedly.
Uh, but yeah, that's a lot about PR, and now we're coming towards the off season in about 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what you would suggest in what to do in the off season. I've seen a lot of different takes of like try a new secondary, have fun, relax. Austin actually, Jello Cup Austin
Mm.
has suggested like just try new things in bracket with your main. Like if you're so afraid of going off stage because you don't want to lose, now you can go off stage now without any fear of losing elo points.
1 second. So, I apologize for the pause there. I was looking something up. So, my recommendation is okay. So, I'm going to give you, if you are still listening to this, because this has been going on for a while, perk up your ears if you're like dozing off a little bit. If you're busy making a sandwich, maybe put the bread down for a second and focus on me. So, if you are wanting to get a higher rating, even though I have already said it's a little stupid. But I mean, whatever. I'm gonna tell you how to do it anyway. Um, what you need to do is, for one, you need to isolate the people who are your main roadblocks. If you are going to more tournaments than Otaku, it is very likely you play the same fucking 2 or 3 people you are walling on every fucking week, right? If you really, really want to improve, your primary mission should be learning how to beat those specific people before you move on to anything else. That is what you do. So you need to isolate why you're losing to those people. What is the gaming counterplay that can deal with it? And then once you find one option, find another one. Find an additional option that also does well into that. Don't just find one thing. Um, Look for those options that beat them after you isolate what your primary issue is. Maybe it's that you have trouble finishing off stocks, maybe that it's you take too much percent early in the game, maybe you're not recognizing how good their burst options are, maybe you shield too much and you're getting punished off that, etc., or maybe you shield too little and you're getting punished off of that. Figure it out. Like really, really sit down and be like, my mission is not even to win this local, it is to figure out what the fuck is going on in these 2 or 3 matchups where I am getting clapped up regularly. Sit there and just figure it out, and then find solutions to it. Once you do that, figure out why those solutions worked. Why did those solutions cause you to start beating this person? What was the issue that they were having with what I was doing? The reason why that is useful is that it lets you apply the strats you develop with dealing with those people to other situations. So like I will, if you listen to me stream ever, which you probably don't statistically if you're listening to that, and that's okay, is I will talk about the verticality of the characters I play against. So some characters play very horizontally. Captain Falcon and Fox play very horizontally. They dash attack and fucking run up near you. That is horizontal gameplay. They just throw their entire fucking body at you. In those kind of situations, I've learned I need to play vertically because I can't out horizontal them. That is a gameplay thing that is in my pocket from those 2 specific matchups. Now I know that I can apply that to Mario, because if I try to play horizontally against Mario, even if he misses Nair, he will be hitting 5 more fucking aerials after that. So I just need to go above him to hit him, right? Um, that was something I learned from one matchup. I figured out why I'm getting clapped. It's because you're just not going to beat Fox horizontally as Ridley. Unless you are being very careful, he will just eventually overwhelm you with his frame data. I took that and I learned that lesson and I applied it to another character. This is how I beat Mario. I play a bit more vertically when I am able to. Does that all make sense?
I think it does, and it's actually like these. This is pretty much what you've been telling me, just more generalized, right? Because when you give me advice, like Big Mike, for example, right, on how to deal with shadows, and you're telling me like just like down tilt more instead of like going like horizontally like with fairs, just like mix up with down tilt or tomahawk grab.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he starts mixing up, then do this. That worked a lot, right? And this advice is actually like it's good, and I really do hope the people that are listening like actually take it to heart. We do, statistically speaking, I looked at statistics. Only 10% of the people actually reach to this point. Uh,
And that's
so
okay.
yeah, that's good, and I hope those people actually like benefit from this. I
Cosmics, if you hear this, if you're the one, call Cullen a loser. Make
They
fun of
already do
him.
that. I already have Discord DMs of calling me names.
Okay, but do it in YouTube comments.
Eyes emoji. But yeah, those are actually like really good. Like that's really good advice, and that's generally what I do to get better. Uh, I struggle with creativity. I'm not sure if anybody else actually does, but that's why I will like look at the gameplay and then think about like what would Bonreal say, what would Rally say, and if I can't contact either of you, I'll just ask and be like, what do you guys think?
I think that's actually like legitimately the hardest part of the game, is having that creativity. And I think that's why people play the way they do and why Ultimate is so polarizing. When I say people play the way they do, it's why people have kind of converged on like looking for high, or pardon me, low risk, high reward shit that they just spam over and over
Mm-hmm.
again, because that is just like more mentally efficient than like learning very niche combos and shit.
Yeah, actually,
um
you can continue there. Sorry about that.
and then also like learning like niche neutral stuff like whatchamacallit, like learning, for instance, that Ridley forward throw forces like tech situations at specific percents, and that you could actually just kind of fish for forward throw and get like a free up smash and kill like certain people. Instead, like what the easier thing to do is just be like, what if I kept fade back F tilting the entire game, because that's hard to deal with for a lot of characters. Like you just kind of have to learn, well, you don't have to, like people tend to avoid learning niche stuff like that unless it like 100% guarantees a kill, and it makes their neutral struggle overall, and it also makes them very unfun to play against, because it's like it's not even bad that the neutral isn't good, it's just like it's like yes or no if you can deal with
Yeah,
it basically. And for the most part with characters like that and people who play those characters like that, it is usually no, most people can't deal with it. And so they just kind of automatically will get better results to a certain threshold until they start getting into people who are either neutral fiends or have like even more powerful either gimmicks, cheese, or just options that are just very hard to deal with.
yeah. That's actually so. That's really, really like. I'm so glad you said that, right? Because there are people who are like, they'll ask for advice, and then like Rice and I will give them advice, and this is multiple people. It's not just one person, right? They just won't listen because it's like, well, that requires me to risk something, or like, well, that's not
Yeah.
super safe. That's not like a guaranteed. Like people want guarantees. They want
Mm-hmm.
like, if Sheik fares, I want to be able to counterplay that by doing this without risking anything, which is just not possible in most fighting games. Like there is risk, there is reward, uh, and I've
Yeah.
told people like I'm not really good with matchup tips like that. I can tell you how to beat me, uh, because this is how other people beat me. It's not because they know the matchup. Uh, but if you want to know matchup stuff, like just ask Skips. He's really knowledgeable about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But people are so dead set on this has to be a guarantee or else I won't do it.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, also, it's like I don't think if this is your first game, a lot of people don't really have that, I'll use a mute word, esoteric knowledge of like their characters' options, where it's like I've literally told unironically, it's been like multiple different characters and multiple different people. I've been like, okay, what if you did retreating fair? And they were like, well, how? And I'm like, oh my god.
No, yeah,
Or
literally.
like they'll be like, or I'll be more general sometimes if I'm like, I don't want to say annoyed, but I'm just like wanting them to figure things out. I'm like, why don't you experiment with naring? And they'll be like, but nair loses to that because it comes out like at a slower frame. And I'm like, that's not what I fucking mean.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to actually experiment, not just run up fair and be like, well, they hit me first, so I lost. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to full hop fair. I want you to retreating fair. I want you to jump pause fair. I want you to landing fucking fair into landing fucking auto cancel fair into spot dodge up smash or some dumb shit. Like, I want you actually experimenting, not getting triggered because like the first option you think of with a move does not work immediately.
Yeah, so that's another sample with Emo Lord, right? Because the first time I played him, I kind of told him, like, consider using Zair. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
that's a committal option, and I think I still lose if I do it. But it's like, I promise you, if you use it correctly, it's gonna make my life harder. And then that one set we played where he was doing it like very consistently, that shit was
Hmm.
fucking hard. And I'm really happy that he was able to do it. But there's still counterplay to that counterplay, you know? And I think that's what got to his head.
Yeah, actually, you'll if you listen to me stream, you'll hear me say this. I'll sometimes say, "Oh man, he fucking knows to X, Y, or Z," or he knows to like do this with he knows to do this with like last hit of fair. I'm gonna fucking lose my mind because I'm like automatically this just becomes immensely harder when people just have like knowledge of specific things their characters can do that are like not like very overt. Like a good example is when Bowser Juniors know like fucking landing fair that last hit like fucking frame traps the shit out of like characters that do not have like a really good out of shield option. Like they can just do that and then you just have to sit there and stare at their next option or be ready to like spot dodge a grab attempt or some shit like that. And that is like very insanely annoying. I hate, absolutely hate when they know they can do that. That
Yeah.
drives me fucking bonkers.
Um,
Um, but it's like only a certain percent of them will do it because it's like they're automatically kind of afraid, like from maybe previous negative experiences that fair is just bad in air quotes. So they're like, I just never use it.
yeah, that's also another thing. Like, we can go on and on about that, but another thing you pointed out was like niche combos for specific characters. There's actually a new, not a new combo, I wouldn't say. I'm not gonna be like, I revolutionized this shit, but uh, if I know people are fucking rolling and spot dodging, and I know that them being above me is good for me, I will just do landing up air and get the last hit. Uh, and that just gives me like a free 40%, right? But most people would think I'm just gonna do the bread and butter, like landing fair, grab, do this, that. Uh, but these combos are really, they're good. It's important to know them because it gives you an advantage.
Hmm.
And it usually, because they're niche, it's hard to counterplay it and like right away unless they're like really smart. And the reason why it's working or why it's good in the first place is like why it's niche is because it puts you in a good advantage for that matchup.
Indeedly deed.
But
You gotta. I think probably the most poignant advice I ever got was from KJ, where it was like, if you're playing a character that isn't free, you just gotta take what you get, bro. And that means if you have to do some janky, evil, weird shit or like lab, like a one very specific interaction because it's like you're just losing to that, and there's like you just kind of have to kill them off of something, or they'll eventually win. Like, all right, well, you gotta fucking figure it out. If you have to be like, okay, I have to at like very specifically like 70 to 75%, I need to fucking falling up air into some dumb shit.
No, yeah, literally, yeah.
like then okay, well, I gotta take that because it's important to kill people before they have a chance to come back.
Yeah, I wish people like KJ, Kevo, and were still around for people to
Mm.
know them and understand, like, because maybe it's just because I miss them all so much. I do think they knew a lot about the game, a lot more than what people know now in our current scene.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we've lost a lot of people who have played multiple Smash games to have like I think pretty good perspective because just
yeah,
Ultimate just like it does not require a certain skill sets as much and they're still useful, but they're not as useful so people like forego them entirely
yes.
in lieu of like what I was talking about before, where they just kind of look for the most hyper efficient option physically possible and just spam it over and over until they get what they want.
It's very accurate, actually. That's something that every Brawl player has ever told me. Like, when I talked to Nike for the first time,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Why don't you play more?" And it's like, because people keep doing the fucking same option. Like, he played against a Rob in Redemption, and they just kept naring and comboing him, and he's like, "Nah, I'm not gonna play this stupid ass game."
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, those are all good examples. I am gonna cut it here just because we're reaching a higher limit of time.
Yeah, we've been talking for a bit.
But thank you all for listening and joining us for the podcast here. Thank you, Bonray, for your time.
You're welcome.
I hope everybody has a good night.
Have a good night.